Okay, doing a relatively quick overview and build video on my 2015 Canyon Nerve AL 6.0 bike that is in Ukraine along with me, that I wanted to do a nice mid-drive build with, and went with the CYC X1. The X1 that I have is an X1 Pro Gen2. I have it set up running with a 72 volt battery, no, 84 volts fully charged, with a BAC 2000 controller, maxing out at about 5.5 kilowatts. This isn't going to be a lot of riding video. I've done a lot of other e-bike builds. I'll discuss that really briefly, and done a lot of riding video, a bit of riding video toward the end, but this is mostly going to be about the build process, and toward the end a little review of the X1, and in context of comparing it to the BBSHD. I've done a bunch of BBSHD builds, 72 volt primarily, and comparing to the Tangent Ascent, which was pretty much the gold standard of mid drives. So let's start at the beginning. I've built a bunch of, like I said, high performance e-bikes since about 2015. Several of my builds, I've published build articles about them on electricbike.com. I'll include a couple links to those in the description below. I live in the US and in Ukraine, although now I live primarily in Ukraine for quite a few years. In the US, I imported a couple Canyon bikes. I'll show a couple pictures of those now. Into US and did builds there. I did a Canyon Dude fat bike with a 72 volt BBSHD using the ERT 72 volt kit with their controller and the cycle analyst display. That's a very fun bike. The other Canyon build I did that I imported to US is a Strive. Pretty much, to me, this is the top of the line of everything possible for a mid-drive dual suspension bike. I did a Tangent Ascent on there. It's 52 volt because that's the maximum you can do for that, but I used 25-hour batteries, so very powerful, 6,000 watt, like 140 amps maximum on the battery pack. So that is pretty much the ultimate mid-drive bike. In Ukraine here, I wanted to build a nice, also powerful, also very high spec as much as possible, dual suspension bike. Wanted to do it this year. So let's see where to start. I picked up this very used 2015 Canyon Nerve. A lot of scratches, a lot of miles on it, but I knew I wasn't going to be keeping the whole bike together. I did not know at the time, mention this now, that my Nerve spec, I think it's a 6.0, and obviously you have different models of Canyon Nerve, the 7, 8, and 9. Anyway, mine was the lowest base model. Why that's, and it didn't really matter to me because I knew I was going to be pulling off a lot of the components for it, but what the big issue with it was that their low model comes with the crappy, skinny QR axles. Didn't realize that at the time that was going to be an issue, but it turned out to be an issue, which I'll talk about later. So I got the Nerve, paid about 920 euros for it, used here in Ukraine. This was in early 2023. By the way, this build process from start till now, till when it's been ready, has been over half a year. I'll explain why also. So got the Nerve here, and I have not been into e-bike building or kind of the high performance e-bike scene heavily like I was before. I was really into it 2015, so haven't been following the market that much. When I started this bike, I was thinking I would either be using BBSHD or Tangent Ascent. Tangent Ascent obviously being the ultimate. However, didn't know that Tangent has gone out of business, unfortunately, and had not heard what happened with Bafang. And Bafang, in my opinion, are total idiots. They're a terrible company. They don't support the high performance market at all, which really sucks because a lot of us high performance riders, I'm an old motocross rider and racer, as a lot of e-bike, e-BMX riders are. Anyway, long story short, if you follow, you know what happened with Bafang with their new version of the BBSHD, that it's locked, performance is locked, it's locked to a crappy battery, just the absolute opposite of supporting the performance community. What I want to just say briefly about the BBSHD, and I'm going to show a clip later of some of my my dude build. BBSHD at 72 volt is absolutely phenomenal. It is such an incredible difference between 52 volt, 48, and 72. The power, not just the power, but how it spins to high RPM, it just sings at 72 volts. And as far as longevity, I have on my dude now a BBSHD with the stock nylon gear. I've tested metal gears. I was the original beta tester of the brass gear back in 2016, I think, 17. With a nylon gear, it's lasted now 7 years. Haven't replaced the original nylon gear. You just have to ride intelligently, and there's no problem. So, but the thing is, BBSHD doesn't work on dual suspension bikes with a swoopy frame like this. It hangs straight down, as many of you probably know. So BBSHD was not a great option for this bike at all. Tangent Ascent I checked into, they're out of business. And anyway, long story short, those of you into high performance e-bikes, you of course know about CYC, that they've been around now for a few years. They're different versions of the X1, and now they have other drives as well, and their X6 and X12 controllers. It's 12 coming out, not yet. So you guys who've been following it, and unlike me, know about CYC. I didn't know anything about them. Started reading about it, watching a ton of videos on CYC. Was kind of disappointed to see that Eric from Luna, who I had a lot of contact with before and was good friends with, that they tore down an early one and really ragged on it, on the build quality. That was obviously almost a pre-production model, early production model. I think the issues talked about there, CYC has fixed a long time ago. Was disappointed to see that, but anyway, I saw that Bafang, I realized after what Bafang has done now with their new models and really saying a big FU to the performance community, I realized Bafang will never get a penny of my money ever again for the rest of my life. So CYC appeared to be the only option for a high performance mid-drive. About the bottom bracket, I ordered the motor and ordered the bike at the same time, but I ordered the motor before I had the bike physically with me. I did a lot of research, and everywhere on Canyon site said that my year nerve had a 68 BSA 6873 bottom bracket. When I got the bike, I didn't measure it. I just assumed it was still the 68 or 73. When the motor came, I tried putting it on and realized that my bike has PF 90, press fit 90 bottom bracket, which made the build quite a bit more complicated. I'm trying to go through this as briefly as possible, but there's a lot of information, just so you guys, if you're doing a similar build, so you know, make sure you check. It's obvious thing you want to check and make sure you order the motor with your bottom bracket. Since I already had the X1, I wasn't going to order a different X1. I already had the bike. I wasn't going to change the bike. It was pretty hard to find a used nerve in decent condition in Ukraine anyway. So what I had to do, and I'll show some photos here. Here's some photos of the motor, the X1 kit when it arrived, the back 2000, which by the way is just huge. It's an absolute unwieldy, huge beast of a controller, completely unergonomically designed with wires coming out at 90-degree angle. And I really doubted whether I was going to be able to fit it all onto my medium-sized frame. But anyway, the X1 motor came, checked it out. The quality, build quality looked fantastic. Everything seemed very high quality, close tolerances. Was really happy with the build quality on that. About the bottom bracket, so I ended up having to use an angle grinder and actually cut the frame, cut the bottom tube. Anyway, where the cranks go through. Cut the CYC designed for BSA goes from 68 to 83. The opening width on it is 83. So since I had a 90 millimeter bottom bracket, I had to cut 7 millimeters off. I cut it off on the non-drive side because obviously the drive side, you want your chain ring to be as close as possible to the body of the bike for a good chain line. So luckily on the non-drive side, I was able to cut 7 millimeters off without cutting into the structural integrity of the bike. So cut that off and you can see from the photos here how it fit onto there, and it seemed to fit okay. The chain ring was in tight to the body of the bike. It seemed fit on okay. It looked like I was going to have an okay chain line. Here's some photos of how the X1 sat on the bottom bracket, and to be honest, if it wasn't for that, the X1 installation is very, very simple. It's not complicated at all. Well, there's a lot of videos, so I won't discuss it, but it was not a bad installation at all. And much like the Tangent Ascent, if you have a dual frame bike or any bike with a swoopy, modern style swoopy off-road down tube, this is really the only game in town for you. BBSHD will not work in that situation. I did it on a couple bikes. I even tried it on my Canyon Strive back in California at first, and it just hangs straight down. You have no ground clearance. It looks ridiculously dumb. So does not work. BBSHD, this is really the only option. Because CYC supports the performance community, I highly recommend them, and B, because the motor, obviously they intelligently designed it, similar to the body of the Tangent, where it fits good, either inside the frame triangle or under the swoopy down tube. So here's some more photos of how it fits on there. Now, before I get to the battery, I'll just talk briefly about the controller. As I said, main thing I wanted was power, maximum power possible on this motor. The X12, much more compact, elegant way to solution, but as of now, actually through all of 2023, it's not been available. So that was an option. So I knew I wanted to go with back 2000. When I got the controller, I thought, well, I'm smart. I'll figure out a way to mount it, zip tie it or make my own mount. No, you need a custom-made 3D mount that puts it on the down tube. If you're going to have a triangle battery, by the way, just talking about, I knew from before doing the build, I was going to do a custom battery pack inside the triangle. Backpack batteries, I absolutely hate. I made one when I did my Strive build, the Tangent Ascent build. I did a triangle battery and a backpack battery. I absolutely hate backpack batteries, so I knew it was going to be in the triangle and that the controller was going to have to go somewhere else. I even tried it on the back of the seat post, tried mounting it different places. No, the down tube is the only option in that case, and you have to go with a custom mount. So spoke with John at High Powered Cycles. If you do search on back 2000 mount, you'll find his videos. He's done some great videos, very helpful guy, and does a great job. So he custom made the mount for me. I actually made a template with the dimensions of my sort of the curvature of the bottom of my down tube, and we went back and forth a couple times. He did it on CAD and sent me the outline of it, and I checked it on the bike, so you can actually design it so it fits your down tube. It's helpful, and the mount fits perfectly. So controller, very huge, but with that mount, it fit. I was worried that the wires coming out of the top right side of it were going to be interfering and hitting the battery box, but that worked out okay. So briefly about the battery box. Well, briefly about battery and box. This was my first 21700 pack build. I did a bunch of packs in the past, this was before 2170s were even out, so all with 18650s. I'm a big fan of the Samsung 25R battery. I've used those in tons, basically all of my builds, because I want more amps rather than more capacity. So I was looking for kind of that equivalent in a 2170 pack. And that to me was a Samsung 40T. Great cell, very happy with them. I got them from Encon NL, actually in the Netherlands. The batteries were available in Ukraine, but there's a lot of fakes out there, so I wanted to get them from a reputable supplier. And to me, Encon, I've worked with them before, they're the best supplier. So I have built battery boxes in the past for in the Triangle. I'll put photos of them here. I actually did an article on electricbike.com about that build process. I bought thin, like 3mm, 4mm Lexan sheets from Home Depot, I think. Kind of ripped them to like a 10 centimeters, 100 millimeters wide, long strip. And then I made an outline in the shape of the opening. And then using a heat gun and some special tools, bent those Lexan strip to fit the outline of the frame. And then I cut with a jigsaw and fine blade the side pieces and used L-shaped L aluminum brackets, not brackets, but long pieces to secure them. To be honest, I think my old battery boxes, which I'll show here with some photos on my Canyon Dude and my Canyon Strive, I think those actually look better than this 3D printed battery boxes. I actually 100% they look better. They look kind of more badass with the screws, and I used carbon fiber, just vinyl. But I thought that the 3D printing process of the battery pack would be easier. Actually, it was not easier. It was just as much time, maybe even more time, than building my battery boxes from scratch like I did before. Excuse me. So about the process for the battery and battery box. First, I made an outline, cardboard outline of my space that I have in the frame, keeping in mind the shock stroke movement, that the shock moves down and actually forward as it said as it goes down through a stroke, so you have to leave extra space there for the shock. This was my first time doing a 20S battery inside this Triangle. This, by the way, was definitely the most challenging, most difficult battery build that I've ever done. 14S. This being 20S, much more difficult because you have to figure out how to get those 20 series into a triangle. So I first made a cardboard template. You see photos of it here. Here's my super high-tech drawing of what the rough shape was going to be. Not an artist. And then did a cardboard cutout. That was the first step, seeing how much space we have in the triangle. That served two purposes. First was I used that for knowing how much space I had for doing my battery layout. I did the layout using those plastic spacers. And the second purpose of the cardboard template was that then went to a 3D printing place here in Ukraine, which has a 3D scanner. They 3D scanned this template, and from that they made their CAD model of the battery box. I gave them the specs of how wide it needed to be and so forth. So that template served two purposes. So from that template, talking about the battery first, I laid out with the spacers, I made a piece of paper the same shape, laid out the spacers and started working on how my cell layout could be, and tried several different layouts, and here you can see the one I ended up with. It's not ideal because you have to have a jumper wires. I used 10 gauge, I believe, 10 or 12, 10 I think, going from the end of the series at the bottom right, going up to the next series on the top, because there's just no way through the physical layout of the battery you couldn't have those two series physically together. So thank goodness I was able to fit the 60 cells in there with a 3P 20S configuration. Talk about the BMS for a sec. Tried a bunch of, I knew I wanted a high output, high capacity BMS. I did a lot of research on that as well, and I went with Daly. This was, I ordered from AliExpress. Went with a 20S 80 amp BMS. You can see in the photo here. Absolute great quality. These are built just fantastic. It's been operating perfectly, no problem so far. I've got 1,000 kilometers on the bike, so it's had a lot of use and doesn't even get warm. I checked it after some hard running. Just really a great quality BMS, so I highly recommend their BMSs. I did not get the Bluetooth version. Now looking back on it, I should have. I would, if I did it again, I would go with the Bluetooth version. Would be nice to have, but anyway, The BMS ended up going on the side because there's absolutely no space anywhere else. So that was going to make the pack in my case quite a bit wider. BMS, as I said, went on the side because of space. I knew that was going to make it wider, but that was only a way I had to fit it. Here you can see a photo where I have the battery pack sitting inside the frame triangle. It looked like there was actually plenty of space, like 7-8 millimeters on top there, but the finished position of the BMS, it ended up that there was only like 1-2 millimeters all the way around it. So did that tape all the way around and sealed any openings to make it at least somewhat water resistant, but obviously this is not a waterproof setup. The bike does not go out in the rain at all, obviously. Talking about the battery box for a second, I'll again just try and do it briefly. So we, like I said, we 3D scanned it. They made that shape on the on CAD program, did a 3D model. I told them the width that I calculated of the box needed to be. I realized that because space was so limited, ideally the walls of this, the sides and the perimeter, you know, the material thickness should have been like 4 or 5 millimeters minimum would have been great. No, 3 or 4 millimeters would have been okay. Because the space was so tight, I did it only 1.5 millimeters thick. I think we did 2 on the left and right side, but around the perimeter is only 1.5, which is really too thin. If you have space and you're doing the same thing, I recommend doing like 3-4 millimeters thickness. It's strong enough, but it is a little bit flexible. Obviously thicker would have been better, but my space was just too limited. About that, I know that I could have used the offset battery spacers, the battery mounts that offset the cells so they're packed a little tighter. I just used the regular rectangular spacers, you know, without offsetting each row of cells. Use the rectangular, not rectangular, but the square grid. Strengtheners on the bottom, some holders that were quite thick on the bottom to, instead of just having zip ties mounting on top and bottom, these gave it a much stronger mounting on the bottom. But because of where the motor mounts and other things were, these holders that we made out of plastic on the bottom, I couldn't put it towards the bottom of the pack. Only 2 of them towards the upper middle and the top of the pack. So it came out really good. But again, if you had a 3D model already of the size you needed, that would make it quite easy, much easier than my old process. But because we had to do all the measuring, the scanning, kind of refined the size a little bit and made those bottom parts, it was actually probably more time consuming than the old way that I did it. And like I said, the old way actually looks better with those cool screws I used and the carbon fiber covering. This plastic material is super slippery. I don't think vinyl would go on top of it. So anyway, it's functional. I put some stickers on it, so that's it. About the chain line, I haven't talked a lot yet, but the chain line, after a lot of work, ended up good. I'll try to find a photo of it here to show you, with the battery box put in to the bike at first and test fitting the battery. I normally do kind of how can I say, like a foam rubber, almost like a yoga mat type material, but harder, like a dense foam rubber, maybe 4 or 5 millimeters thick, all the way around the battery for shock insulation, vibration insulation. This one just didn't have that space. I found some like 1.5 millimeter dense foam to put around the perimeter of especially on the bottom where it's biggest concern to have impact there and where the weight is. But actually on this pack, it's sort of strange. A lot of the weight rests at that very bottom right point. Not so much that weight is along the bottom of the battery, but that weight is sort of being supported, which isn't ideal, at the very bottom right where that thin section sticks down by the shock. So I don't go over huge jumps on this bike. So you know, I kind of ride it with mechanical sympathy and understanding that I can't do a huge hard impact on it because of how tightly my battery is shoved in there. has been finished 2 times. It's been a version 1 and version 2. When I bought the kit and kind of originally had the bike in mind, I was only planning on doing a powertrain upgrade, power, electrify it, and high power and battery, and that was it. To spend 1,200 euros on the X1 kit, and what the materials cost was on the battery, and assemble it myself. So that was the original plan. So this is kind of the version 1 finished version of the bike, and this is how I had just planned to have it. This I thought I was done with it. Just upgrading again, power plant, not powertrain really, and battery. This is the CYC, by the way. Again, CYC, excellent to work with. They support. I highly recommend you buy from them. I have no connection with them whatsoever, but they support the high performance community. If you're into fast e-bikes, fast electric bike, like the original group was on Facebook, if you're into high performance e-bikes, I highly recommend you go with the CYC, because Bafang are ass wipes. They don't support us at all. Unfortunately, Tangent is gone, and it was super expensive. So the only game in town now, in my opinion, for high performance is CYC. And mine so far has been totally reliable. And I had some questions during the build process. They were super great help. And I didn't even buy from them directly. I bought from a dealer in Poland. So it was great. So I finished it this way, wrote it for about a month. Was really happy with the X1, with the power output from the 84 volt maximum battery. But I realized after not too long that the other components of the bike were not up now to the level of the power plant. The brakes were not great. I just had basic crappy bottom level Shimano brakes. They were mismatched. Suspension, no, the shock was okay. The fork, it was okay, but not obviously. It's a bottom level Fox 32. I really didn't like the fact that it had those crappy thin QR axles. I was really bummed to find that out. I assumed that all Canyon mountain bikes had the nice fat Thru axles. Both of my other Canyon bikes had them. I just assumed that this one has. I didn't realize that the bottom trim level had the crappy QRs. So I was feeling some flex, I could feel some lack of solidity in both the front and the rear axles from having those QRs. Brakes were pretty crappy too. Suspension was crappy. It didn't feel that the rest of the bike wasn't up to the level of the power plant. It just felt kind of squishy and not solid like I wanted. And it looked kind of plain Jane gray. The gray frame is kind of boring. So I was thinking that I really needed to upgrade the rest of the bike and bring the rest of the bike up to the level of the X1. So that's when we entered phase 2 of the build, which took another like 2-3 months. Yeah, phase 2. So that pretty much doubled the cost of my upgrades. Let's talk about it. I know this video has ended up being long. I want to just do it as quickly as possible, but there is a lot that went into this build. So, and I posted it. The reason why I'm doing this video, I wasn't really planning on doing one at first, but I posted in a couple Facebook groups, the CYC group, and there was a lot of positive response to the bike. A lot of people liked it, questions. So I thought, some other people made CYC X1 build videos. This obviously is not that. There's great installation videos and other videos on X1, but that I would make it. So if somebody's thinking about doing it on a Canyon, hopefully this will help you. So let's talk about phase 2 and all the other upgrades that were done as briefly as possible. First thing is about this QR axle. I didn't know at first if I was going to be able to upgrade it. I actually thought I couldn't. The fork was not a problem, because whatever fork I got, I knew it was going to have a nice fat through axle. Obviously the issue is the rear, because the QR has specialized inserts in the frame with the opening, with the skinny size opening for that skinny QR axle. I didn't know if I was going to be able to adapt that to a fat 12 millimeter through axle. The short version I'll say is that it is possible that Canyon, at least with these bikes, and I think it's true also with a Neuron, probably some other ones, when they make the different trim levels, obviously the frame is going to be the same between the Nerve 5.0, 6.0, 7, 8, 9. The frame is the same. They're not going to make different frame rear openings. So what is different is the inserts. There's one insert for the QR. So the frames are all the same, obviously, on the different trim levels of Canyon. From doing a lot of research and on forums, a lot of people had the same question on who had the bottom level Canyon bikes. Can you upgrade your QR axle to Thru Axle? The short answer is yes. The frames are the same on all the different trim levels, obviously. What you need are the Thru Axle, obviously, and the insert on the right side, the drive side of the bike. That is a receiver threaded for that QR. So through a bunch of research, I found the Canyon part for this QR kit, found the part number from some other people who had done it, looked on Canyon's different sites, America, Germany, couldn't find this part at all, realized that you actually have to contact Canyon, sort of beg them to sell you this part, and get it directly from them. So long story short, Canyon were total ass blanks to work with, total dicks to me. They were terrible. And the thing is, I've been such a big cheerleader for Canyon since 2016, really promoting them in the US and importing their bikes to the US at high expense from Germany, and really talking about the great benefits of Canyon bikes. And they're still great bikes, but I am just super disappointed. I've gotten terrible service and snubbed from Canyon with just this little 32 euro part. And long story short, when I contacted them to buy the part, I said, here's my bike, here's the part, I know the part number, I just need you to show me how I can buy it. They replied with, prove us that you own the bike. We see on your system that you purchased the Strive and the Nerve back in 2016. I said yes. They said, but we don't see this bike in the system. I said, well, I bought it used from a bike shop in Ukraine. So I had to contact the owner, get an invoice made with all that information, send it back to Canyon. Meanwhile, weeks just, and the other thing is when I contacted Canyon, it was like a week before I got a reply. Their, auto replies were overwhelmed, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, long story short, sent them this information, thought, okay, now I'll get my invoice, I can get my part. They replied, that's not the serial number of your bike. Your serial number is different. Well, I was sending them the number that was stamped on the bottom bracket, and they were looking for a serial number that's on a sticker on the down tube. Well, I never saw that on my bike. I don't know if it even had. Bike's not stolen, obviously. I'm a longtime Canyon customer. I've really supported your brand. And anyway, long story short, went back and forth, wasted like 3 weeks with this. They wouldn't sell me the part. They were total asswipes about it, and really disappointed in Canyon and their customer service. I cannot recommend buying from them again. Yeah, the bikes are great, but their service was just horrendous. So I ended up finding the Thru Axle size that I needed. I ended up having to get a nut that goes on the right side because I couldn't buy that receiver part. So I ended up buying a few different size Thru Axles and a few different nuts from AliExpress and Amazon. There's an Amazon one that comes with the nut. The bottom line is you want a 12 by 148 Thru Axle. If you did like me, where you need some extra space, like 5-7 millimeters on the right side that sticks out to have threads for the nut, because it's not sitting flush like it would with the standard Canyon insert there. So on Amazon, I tried 12 by 142. The actual hub size on when you switch to Thru Axle, it is 12 by 142. But because you're going to put a nut on the outside, you need a 12 by 148, and you need a conical washer on the left side, the non-drive side. So anyway, sorry, that was a long story about the axle, but just to let you know, if you do have a Canyon bike with a terrible QR, you can switch it to Thru Axle. If you bought the bike new from Canyon, you're on their system, it's going to be no problem, I'm sure. But if, like me, in this case, I bought the bike used, in Ukraine, and it's not in their system. They were total asses about it. So, did my switch to Thru Axle. Talk briefly about wheels and tires. So I knew that I wanted to have fatter, plus size tires. I wanted this to be like a mini motorcycle. I used to have a YZ80 and then a YZ250 and then a different YZ250 and a Kuberg FreeRider, which I love. So I wanted this to have as fat tires as would fit on it. I didn't care really about the extra weight a little bit or rolling resistance. So doing a lot of research, I see that, Plus is available to 6, to 8, and in a few cases 3.0. I wanted MAXXIS off-road tires that I could do 3.0 on the front and 2.8 on the back. The reason it's staggered is I knew my clearance was going to be really tight on the back. The frame obviously was designed years ago for a 2.25 inch wide tire. Canyon never thought about it being used for fatter plus size tires. So I knew 2.8 and 3 was going to be my tire size. 3 on the front fork was going to be no problem at all. And again, 2.8 on the rear. So researching, I found that the High Roller 2 was the best option that was available in both those sizes. The more popular ones like the DHR and DHF, the Agassi, whatever it is, those are not available in 3.0. So this tire was. Decided to go with that. Wheels, I went through several different iterations. I knew I was going to use DT Swiss. There is not a lot of information online and none on the DT Swiss site comparing their different plus size rims. They have 4, at least to my knowledge, the XM 521, 541, I think it is, and then the what I have, which is the 582 and the 542. I at first bought XM 521s because that sort of seemed like the most popular plus size wheel. That's an internal width of 35 millimeters, which I found some charts online that showed that should work okay with 2.8 even up to 3.0 tires. After I bought those, I had been doing more research and found out about the M542 and M582. I decided I just wanted the absolute widest wheel possible. A, for more strength, B, for better fit with super wide tires, super wide plus tires. So I ended up getting a set of M582s, and I ended up building 2 sets of wheels actually. But the 582s were the final choice. I have 542 stickers on there because I ordered the stickers from a place called Slick Graphics. I think they're in Sweden. So about these wheels and tires, just briefly, they fit. I haven't talked about the fork yet, and here's some photos of the wheels. I bought all the parts separately, shipped them from Germany. Everything, a lot of the stuff was bought from Germany. Bike Components DE, Bike Discount DE, and R2 website. So got these components from Germany, shipped to Ukraine. Had a professional bike shop wheel builder build the wheel sets for me. I didn't want to tackle that myself. Used DT Swiss 350 rims, just a standard 350. As I mentioned, 582. Used a DT Swiss 2.0 spokes, standard spokes. Also, again, I've been away from this for a while before kind of the tubeless movement has gone crazy. I was planning on just doing a regular tubed installation. Then again, in my research, read about tubeless, read about the benefits of it, didn't want to try and conquer that myself. So I figured since I was having a professional do my wheels, might as well set it up tubeless. So got the 42 millimeter rim tape. He put it on there, did tubeless installation, and it's been great. Super happy with it. I would definitely recommend using tubeless if you're building a new set like this. Really no negatives at all, and you get the positive of much better protection from punctures, flat tire from that, much lower chance of it. So super recommend doing tubeless setup. Very happy with it. Fork. Talk briefly about the fork. I was originally thinking Fox 40. I was looking at them new and used. Obviously very expensive for a Fox 40. I follow Suran scene and forums and information a lot. I know that's a popular upgrade for the Suran. Was thinking about going Fox 40. Long story short, because of price and other issues, decided not to go that way. Started thinking about the Manitou Dorado, which I have had on my Kuberg FreeRider, which I will put a clip of now.
It really has a lot of power. Suspension is great. It just soaks up the bump.
So had the Manitou Dorado, researched into using that on this bike. Couple reasons why it's not possible. First, obviously it's very expensive. It's about 1,200 bucks, between 1,000 and 1,200 euros here. But the second other issue is that it's a 203 millimeter fork travel. This is 120 millimeter, kind of low end, all around mountain bike. So with 120 rear suspension and having 203 on the front, it's a ridiculous mismatch. It's not going to work. Your front end is going to sit too high, like a chopper doing a wheelie. It's just way too long, and it's too much of a mismatch of travel. So knew that wasn't going to work. I started just for the heck of it looking on AliExpress and researching about Chinese forks. Ended up finding this Bolany brand, Chinese, sort of a Manitou Dorado copy, inverted dual crown fork. I absolutely wanted dual crown for the solidity, the feel, the solidness, and because it looks cool. It was kind of hard to find information about them. No, I could find information, hard to find reviews. There was only a handful of reviews. They seemed positive, so I decided I'd take a chance, risk my life on Chinese dual crown inverted forks. Ended up buying them from Amazon in US and shipping them to Ukraine. That was the fastest option. Long story short, very happy with them so far. So far they haven't fallen apart. The build quality seems really good. Obviously they're not Manitous. I'm not pretending they're Manitous. Well, actually I am. I put stickers on there, but they're not the same as Manitous. But considering that Manitous cost 6 times as much almost, these are great. They have 110 by 15 Thru Axle. So obviously that's how I designed my front wheels, was to have the hubs for that. 110 by 15. They are super solid, much more stability than a regular, not dual crown like the Fox 32. Much more stable, much more like a motorcycle feel, which was what I was looking for. Very similar feel to the Dorados. Nice and progressive stroke. That part is fine. They actually work well. In general, for the money, build quality seems good. I'm very, very satisfied with them. Two things about the minuses. One minus I'm having is when I lift up the front end, like to lift up, pull the wheel off the ground, go up a curb, something like that, I hear like a little thunk, like you lift off the ground and like the bottom tubes are going to the bottom of their travel and hitting a stop like that. Doesn't affect the function of it. It's just not really confidence inspiring. When you lift the wheel off the ground, hear a little thunk. I need to talk with Bolany about that, see if there's some way to remedy that. Main thing is they don't fall out, which hasn't happened yet. The other thing to just mention about them, if you do get these forks, I want to add a little bit of air. I want to increase the pressure, increase the resistance a little bit. The screw for adding the air is on the bottom on the left side, the brake side. When I opened that to add air, no, the bike was just standing vertically. Standing on the ground normally. Hydraulic fluid, damping fluid started to drip out of that cap. So thank goodness it didn't drip on my brakes, pads, calipers, or rotors. That would have been disastrous. So just be aware, if you are doing adding air, if you get these forks, do it upside down so that you don't have any fluid drip onto your brakes. But in general, for the money, so far these have been great. Absolutely no complaints. They feel super solid and stable. The travel is progressive. As long as they don't fall apart in the next few months or soon, I'm very happy with them. So that's it about the forks. Now about the brakes. Again, I'm sorry this is so long, but There really is a lot that went into this build, and I'm just trying to go through each aspect of it as quickly as possible. Quickly about the brakes. I thought I was going to just upgrade to like top-end Shimano's, like 8200 or 9100, 9200 with their ICE rotors. I knew I definitely wanted a 4-piston, so that was kind of the original plan. Then I was reading more, researching more. I knew Maguras were absolutely great from like the Surround world, from motorcycle world, from also mountain bike world. Started researching more on Maguras, decided, okay, that's the way I want to go. Deciding between the MT5 and MT7, decided, basically I wanted everything on this bike to be top of the line. So ended up going with the MT7s. Then I found out about the Raceline, and part of my upgrade build, the build version 2, I wanted to add a lot of bright color to the bike. I wanted to use that accent color, the kind of highlighter neon yellow green color, and sort of like some green alloy aluminum colored parts as well. I wanted to really take the bike from being just kind of a blah gray mouse, not exciting looking at all, to really try and, besides, obviously, main thing was increasing the functionality, the performance of it, but also I wanted to really improve the looks of it and make it look nicer, look more exciting, more like a high performance race bike. So decided I was going to add a lot of accents in that neon highlighter yellow color. When I saw the MT7 race lines, I was like, crap, I've got to get these. So they're ridiculously expensive, but obviously performance, functionality is exactly the same as the MT7s. About rotors, I was looking at Shimano at first, but then I realized in Magura you have to use Magura rotors too, or you should use, because they're 2mm width, and their rotors obviously match for the correct width for the calipers. Looking at all the different models of rotors, decided to go with the MDR-Ps. Those are their most beefiest, top of the line. Weight is not my big concern, so those have great cooling. Top line rotors. About size, I was thinking, well, I'll just go to like 203. Then realized, why not? I'm upgrading everything. Why not have the absolute biggest rotors possible? Same as like in the automotive world. I have a car. I always say that these brakes, the MT7 and these rotors, it's like it's the Brembo carbon ceramic brakes of the bike world. It absolutely is. It's absolute top of the line brakes, and having a high performance vehicle like this, you really need great braking. It's just as essential as good power, good acceleration, good handling, which this bike has in spades, absolutely. But good braking is absolutely essential. It gives you the confidence to fly, very high speed into a corner, and knowing you can brake with control at the last minute. So I decided to go with 220 rotors. The issue with that was I used the Magura adapter. I'll try to show a close-up of what that is. I used the Magura adapter on the rear. That was no problem, but on the front, these Bolany's are made for post-mount 160, which is kind of, I think that's a bad decision on their part. If they know this was going to be used in high performance apps, they should have at least done a PM 180, if not 203, because 160 is just, crap, not for this level of bike build. So I had to find a post-mount 160 to 220 adapter. Those are actually very hard to find. I ended up buying one from Germany, ordered one from UK that was taking forever. I was able to find it though, and got the rotors, the 220 rotors, installed on the wheels and on the bike with absolutely no problem. Everything fits great. So I used a Magura. I believe the rear mount on this bike was 180, so it was the Magura adapter 180 to 220. Don't remember the model number. And again, in Germany, I ended up finding a post-mount 160 to 220 adapter that allowed the caliper to fit perfectly on these forks. Here, I need to mention one other thing too about the tire installation and using these fat plus size tires. Here you can see a couple photos of the clearance issue I was having in back. On front, obviously with these forks, 3-inch wide tires, no problem at all. On the back, I was looking originally at the width. I measured the inside width on the upper frame opening there and the lower Saw that 2.8 would fit okay with like 5 millimeters on each side. Was thinking about the width, wasn't thinking about the diameter. You have a much bigger diameter tire going to a 2.8 rather than the skinny 2.2s that were on there before. I think I measured it and the difference was like 7 or 8 millimeters actually bigger diameter tires, which actually gives you effectively quite a bit taller gear ratio as well. So here's a photo of the upper frame stay. I have about 1.5 millimeters of clearance there with the tires fully inflated. Obviously, if you're going through a lot of mud or something, this is going to be an issue. It's going to get caked in there. I don't plan on going through deep mud on this bike, so should be okay for me. But my real issue was on the bottom frame stay. When I put the wheel in and was rear wheel and was first testing it, the tire was hitting there, and I'm like, crap, you know, what am I going to do? I thought I'm going to have to go back to a smaller tire or underinflate. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to cut the frame at all, obviously. Long story short, I ended up cutting the frame. That bottom piece, as you can see there, I forgot what the name is for that technically, but the bottom cross piece on the swing arm, what I did was I made with a marker a template of where the tire was hitting, remove the rear wheel, and then very carefully with an angle grinder grinded off material on that to follow the shape curve of the tire and give a couple millimeters, or at least like 1.5 millimeters of space clearance for the tire tube. So where I had to angle grind it on the right side there, it opened up the tube. So I just simply filled that entire U-shape now tube, well, in the middle it's U-shaped, with liquid metal epoxy and made it a solid piece of, you know, aluminum / liquid metal. They were very easy to install. I read some really mixed reviews about the levers, these MT7 levers, which are basically plastic, their version of strengthened plastic. I thought I was going to have to, and here's some photos of the levers. Thought I was going to end up replacing them with longer Shimano. Also, I wasn't sure if they were going to be long enough for my use, but I ended up actually loving the levers. In general, I love these brakes. Totally worth the money. I absolutely recommend, if you've been using Shimanos, go to Magura, the MT5 and the MT7. 7s preferably. Doesn't have to be the Raceline. I wanted them because they look cool and match my highlighter green accent colors perfectly. But the levers, I haven't broken them. They don't feel like they're going to break easily. They're perfect for 2-finger use. On the throttle side, yeah, they're over a little bit. I can easily get 1 finger on the front, which is, in most cases, it's fine. I can reach over and get 2 fingers. So I don't feel any need at all to replace these levers for Shimano. Totally happy with them. Like how they look, and most important, they function great. So totally happy with the levers. That reminds me, while I'm sort of at this topic now, with the Domino throttle, just want to mention about throttles. If you're not familiar with Domino, I've used them for years, probably since 2015, on all my high-end e-bike builds. They're by far, without question, the best e-bike throttle on the market. No thumb or finger throttle for this kind of bike is absolutely no. To me, this is a motocross bike. Motocross brake configuration. Right is front, obviously, and left is rear, as God intended it. So just nothing other to say. Domino throttle is great. It works perfectly on this build. The great thing is the CYC phone app, the software. You can go in and adjust all the advanced parameters on the controller. So you can set, which I did, the voltage of where your 0% and your 100% is to match, you know, the voltage curve of the Domino. I think it goes from like right around 1 volt to like 4.2 or 4.3 or something maximum. So you can go in the parameters and set up so the controller, you know, matches the voltage output of the throttle perfectly. So again, another thing that CYC is great about, giving you that app where you can go in and adjust advanced parameters with the Bluetooth. So Domino throttle, 100% still recommend it. Still all these years later, it's still the best on the market. I wanted to really kind of make it not so boring gray, so I got the stickers from a place in Sweden called Slick Graphics, and I got some from Ali as well, to really kind of give more highlight of that accent color. Yes, I know it's kind of cheesy to put Manitou stickers on a Chinese fork, but I don't care. It's not for resale. The bike is for me, and I want it to be fun and to look cool. So I got some matching Manitou stickers and some other stickers in that color. The battery box was kind of boring and black, and the plastic doesn't look great anyway. And Magura sent some really cool stickers with their brakes, so I decided just to put the Magura on there, which actually ended up matching well. I knew I wanted to have some aluminum pieces. I'll talk about those briefly. Also in kind of the alloy green. The pedals are fantastic. I don't have a close-up. Well, here you can kind of see the pedals. These are Race Face. Oh my gosh, I forgot the model number. You will recognize immediately. So there's a Chinese copy of these on AliExpress for like 30 bucks. These are about 100 bucks, actually very expensive. But I decided I wanted to go with Race Face for pedals, for the Sprocket, and for handlebars. So it was all matching. The pedals are just phenomenal. They look great. They spin super, very high quality feeling, bearing. They grip your shoes great. So I absolutely super highly recommend these Race Face pedals. I don't know about the AliExpress copies. I got to begin with, I got a matching green Race Face handlebar, but then realized that it's the wrong width, that the handlebar in this case needs to be 31.8, not the fatter, like 35, in order to fit the display and the stock Canyon stem, which I kept, and it worked perfectly. So I ended up getting a Wake brand, I believe, handlebar from AliExpress that's 31.8. in the matching green. That handlebar is fine. 720 width, which is perfect. It's how the bike was before, and for me that's perfect width. I also got a Race Face 34 tooth front sprocket. This CYC X1 came standard with their middle setup, which I believe is 3660, I think. It's the middle size larger sprocket. I don't remember the different variations, but anyway, it was 36. As I was riding, and also to mention, I used the Shimano 10-speed steel cassette, which is a CS HG50. I've used that on all my builds basically. So you need that, very strong. You also need to use the steel insert on the hub. Oh my gosh, I forgot what it's called, but it's it's what the cassette attaches to. I can't remember, but the DT Swiss 350 comes with aluminum. You need to switch that for steel. I have not done it yet. I know I'm totally chewing up the aluminum piece that the cassette goes onto, so I'm going to be ordering the steel one to replace it with. I did that on previous builds. I haven't done it on this one yet. So did the green aluminum accents again with the pedals, the sprocket, and the handlebars. Those came out great. One issue I want to mention here, if you see this kind of last photo, when the build was finished, you notice that the Bolany forks, I actually loosened and dropped them down quite a bit, about, I would say, 8 centimeters, maybe 8 or 9 centimeters, because they are longer by about that much than the stock Fox 32s that were on there. If I had mounted them so then kind of the normal way, where the tubes are flush with that top aluminum piece, the front end would be way too high, and it would look kind of ridiculous, and the suspension, the travels would be mismatched a lot. So I dropped them down. I was afraid this was going to look idiotic at first, but actually now I really like how it looks. It feels super stable in that setup. With the tubes, drop down about 7 centimeters. Also, it gives the bike ride height kind of matching front and rear. It's not an issue with travel with the tire hitting the controller. It's never happened. Also, I think I forgot to mention, but the travel on the Bolany, they advertise it as a 160, but then deep down in the specs, it says like effective travel 145 millimeters. So it's actually 145 travel, which in this case is perfect, because now I only have a 25 millimeter difference between the front and rear. So by dropping the fork down, the tubes dropping down this distance, it gives absolutely perfect ride height, and I love the stability. So I was very excited to finally have the finished build together. Took it out. The build was finished a couple months ago, I think in mid-August of 2023. Now it's late October as I'm making this video. Took it out for first couple test drives. It felt phenomenal. No issues at all. What else can I say? I played with the settings in the software quite a bit, played with the settings in Bluetooth. Very happy with how it rides. Handling is phenomenal. Just with that front fork, you get such stability with a dual crown. You can't match it with anything else, and it really feels very similar to the Manitou. The rear shock is no problem at all. I love these plus size tires, the high roller 2s. Traction is phenomenal, super solid with those M582 rims. Just the wheel set feels great. Brakes are the best brakes I've had on any of my builds. I just absolutely love these brakes. So the handling, braking, just how the bike feels, it's phenomenal. It's functional and good looking at the same time. So super happy with how that has come out. I mentioned I want to compare, talk about I'm going to do a last part here talking about the X1 in particular, because that I think is what most people are interested in who are thinking about installing the X1. I kind of have a unique experience that I can compare it with BBSHD 72 volt and the Tangent Ascent, since I've done both of those builds. So briefly, the X1 feels great. It revs quickly. I mean, the build quality is great. I've never had it overheat to any higher than like 45 Celsius, even pushing it a lot. Power level feels great. I have it set to a maximum of, I think it's like 65 amps, so maximum 5,500 watts. Compared to the BBSHD, here's my feeling. If you have a 72 volt, 52 isn't even in the ballpark. You need to go 72 volt on BBSHD. It makes a world of difference, much bigger improvement. Compared to 72 volt BBSHD, which I had mine set at 3,300 watts, this feels very similar in power delivery to that BBSHD 72 volt, but like 25% more. Not a huge difference really between the 72 volt BBSHD and this power wise. This is definitely more powerful and it pulls harder, but it's not a huge difference, to be honest. I really think it feels like a 72 volt BBS plus 25%. So still, you know, great, still adequate, more than enough. Compared to the Tangent, not really a comparison. Even though the Tangent was only 52 volt system, it maxes at like 140 amps. That thing is just a monster. The way the power comes on, yeah, the sound is crazy too, but the way the power comes on, it just hits like a beast. I ride with mechanical sympathy. I know that my drivetrain, you know, drivetrains are built for 500 watts, not 5,000. So I have mechanical sympathy, but the Tangent just is in another league as far as how the power output feels. It's not available anymore. It was over $2,000, so it's really not even an issue. So again, the CYC X1, it feels great. And now, lastly, briefly, would I do anything different, and what are the negatives of this build? Okay, would I do anything different redoing it, or if cost was no object? I've thought about that many times. No, not really. I'm super happy with all the components. If money was no object, there's not really anything I would change. The Manitou Throttle isn't really an option for this bike. It's too long travel. Nothing else. Wheels, brakes. To me, this has all the ultimate quality level of parts. So I wouldn't change a thing really on this build. I'm absolutely happy with every component. Negatives about it, things I'm not happy with. There's only one thing, I mentioned a couple little issues, that fork. There's only one thing about how the X1 works and how it runs, and I think I need to still do more software tuning. I'm not super happy with how the power comes on when you give it accelerator through the Domino throttle. It's first of all, it's a very gradual ramp up, which is great for your drivetrain, great for mechanical sympathy, that you're not going to destroy your cassette, your hub holder on the cassette, your chain. For mechanical sympathy, it's great, but even, you know, really, if you want to really get on it from a stop, or not from a stop, but from a slow roll, it ramps up. There's definitely a slow ramp, so hopefully I can modify that in the controller settings, because it is a little too gradual for me. I'll give you an example about that on my 72 volt BBSHD on the Canyon Dude. Here's a video of it going on dirt from a dead stop. can easily spin the rear wheel like that, and just you know, really felt great from a dead stop. On this, I can't even really spin the even highest power mode, can't spin the rear wheel on dirt from a dead stop because it ramps up so gradually. So that's kind of messed up. I want to be able to, like on the Dude, you saw, I'll show you here, it wheelies very easily. So it has kind of instant power, like a direct connection from the throttle, you know, to the response of the motor. This, there's kind of like a little bit of a delay. It's not due to the throttle is giving signal right away, but there's a little bit of a delay, and it ramps the power very gradually. I prefer a more direct throttle motor response connection, you know, linear and instant kind of response, and you know, that I can control with my wrist. So I think I need, obviously it's an issue in the controller, not the motor. I need to work on programming of that, but in general, you know, I'm super happy with the build. That's the one issue, is the ramping and kind of the delay in the throttle response. So hopefully that can be fixed with programming. But in general, bike is great, looks great, rides great, and I highly recommend the CYC X1. So sorry this was so long, but thanks for watching. Now I'll put a couple quick clips of it riding. You can hear the sound, and I'll show riding with the BBSHD first, 72 volt. I also did the metal gear and the nylon gear, the tangent Ascent, and then finally you can hear the sound on how the X1 is riding on this bike. So thanks for watching. Starting in second gear. Alright, and then go up here. And a little. Alright. Good job, little tangent.
Let's go. Turbo stabilization off.
Bruh.
I guess the last time to go that way before police come. Thank you. That's it.